Okay, bonus material. All right, so I'm back here on the organic form, and I have the volume mesher with the cloner, right, that's created it. I'm going to go back and make sure it's hidden still. And I still have the volume mesher that I'm going to use. So this little trick I'm going to use with another cloner, it requires a mesh that I can kind of work off of. So I'll just go back and work from this one as a way of placing these little objects I'm going to show here in a second. And then I can delete that after you see what I'm about to do. So, all right, so if this is supposed to be this form, and I guess the idea is the student is doing these really cool form structures that have a tube, and then they have all these little pieces, I don't know, these little buds or I don't know, barnacles or something that are inside there. So what I was thinking is, what if you could take this form and carve out a spot in the rapid prototype, and then you would hand build the spots in the Clay Studio and put those into the form. So you would get the basic structure, but you create these little indentations, right, where you could put them. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and create just a sphere, and I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, right? And what I'm going to do is put this sphere inside a cloner. So once again, cloner, and you can see I get a grid. You know, it's kind of hidden in there. But all right, so if I go to the cloner underneath the object, so here's the grid, and we've been using radial, but ta-da, they also have an option for object, right? So it says, let's take this sphere that we're going to clone, and let's clone it along an object. Of course, I changed it to object and it disappeared because it doesn't know what object to clone it along. So let's go to our little volume mesher, that we created in the last tutorial, and let's just drag it and drop it in there. And so what it does is it duplicates that across the surface, right? This is the distribution type. I could tell it to put it at every single vertex. Now don't do that. Every edge and every polygon. This is a really dense mesh, right? So it would put a lot of clones, way too many. So do not do that. You will probably crash your machine, right? So just know that at the default, it's to do it along the surface. The reason this is the default is so that it will only put 20 copies along the surface, not 10 billion on the surface. I could certainly increase that. I could say, hey, let's put 40 or something in there, but for now, let's just leave it at 20. All right, so this is not bad. I could certainly just run with this, but maybe to add a little variety, I'll duplicate another sphere, and this time I'll make this one like 10. So I know I have some big ones and some small ones. As always with the cloner, if you like that it's random, but you don't like the distribution, you can change the seed type, which actually, you know what, that did most of what I want it to do anyways. Let's just see here. That looks pretty good. There is an effector that I can use called push apart to get these to slide along the surface. But in this case, I don't think I really need it, right? So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it with a count of 20. Now I'm just going to hide this mesher that's down here. So I've created a cloner, and the cloner is referencing this surface. This surface doesn't have to be visible for the cloner to reference it. It just needs to know where the geometry is. And now I'm going to put the cloner inside the builder, which is just so cool. And we'll give it a second. So you can see now it's incorporated that fused it into that surface. Now you can see these are kind of faceted because inside this cloner, the sphere, they don't have enough segments, right? They just have 16. If you were counting this out, it would be 16. So let's just make it nice and high and smooth. So just put 128, and you can see now that I've added these little, I don't know, polyps or something to this structure. But instead of just, and let's go into the builder. You can see since we added it, it's above the smooth. We want it to be below, right? So it smooths that out. And instead of union, let's subtract, right? So I now get these little cutaways. And if the prototyper doesn't freak out printing these, what a great place is a little placeholder to then make handmade parts that you would do the voodoo that ceramics people do that I don't know how to do, and put those handcrafted forms into these little sections, right? And obviously you can make as many as you would want, but now that's there. So let's call this volume measure reference. And now just come back to the volume measure. And at this point, I would just recreate what I did before, right? I would just say current state to object. It'll take a second to calculate. I will hide everything else. This is now the mesh that I want to work from. I'll just zoom in. And because the prototyper wants to see a nice clean cut, I will just run in here. And this is at the top here. This is point mode, edge mode, and polygon mode, right? So I'm just going to draw a box around where we want to make a cut. And we'll go back into object mode. Look at that. That thing is so fun, right? So totally organic. We have these little placeholders where fun little ceramic pieces, and we get that fusion of what the prototyper does well and what the human hand would do well, placing other little sculpted forms into those placeholders, right? So the volume builder, once again, I'm really hoping the prototyper doesn't have any issues with these tiny little edges and knows how to sample this. I think that would be pretty cool. All right, bonus material. I hope it helps.